The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He leadeth me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou anointest my head with oil, my cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the most super intelligent force, power, and source of love and creation forever. What's happening? We're parked at a truck stop in Houston, Texas, the Royal We, that is. What time is it? They say, well, we have our own phones, sir. We know the time. 5:12 Central Time. The delivery is at 8 a.m. That reminds me, I do need to read the instructions. Should be fairly straightforward. Standard stuff. Standard here. Yeah. Well, it looks like my days of waking up way too early in a panic, like, oh, it's midnight, and oh my God, I better start my truck driving shift. But then, in the past, I would just be awake at midnight. And that was some of my frustrations with Balkan, a company that I enjoyed working for that company or with that company, but um, I ended up quitting mainly because they kept, uh, you know, not having nothing for me to do until like 10 a.m. the next day, and I'm like, yo, I've been up for 10 hours. Like, what are y'all doing to me? So I was able to go back to sleep, which is good. Woke back up about four-ish, and yeah, got the kind of rest where, um, for truck driving, it's a strange phenomenon. I don't know that, I assume all truckers understand this, but in a way, too much sleep is kind of worse than not enough in a specific type of way. Uh, I feel less alert now than I probably did when I woke up at 11, effectively midnight, right? Which is a bit of a strange thing, I would say. Um, something about getting into that level of rest, that deep rest, um, is interesting. Does something to the truck driver. I'm not sure what that is, but damn skeeters tore me up yesterday. It was hot as fuck in this truck, man, in Houston. It wasn't bad outside. Let me calm down. Let me chill out. I feel the energies rising, and it's good to remind myself sometimes about my own personality and sort of my own, energies and uh, things about Benton, right? Not what I am, but the personality. Um, these series of experiences, the biography, right? The performer in the context of the performance. Um, and before I forget, I've been eating way more food than normal in the last several years, and now we get into not body dysmorphia. And here's how the internet works: at some point, this information will filter out, and it will get turned into, oh, now he has body dysmorphia. No, I said not body dysmorphia, right? But just seeing my face, when I gain weight, it goes to my face first. So it's like, yeah, I kind of got used to my thin face. Not that it's not thin now, but that's kind of interesting. And then maybe that's better. Maybe I'll get followed around the Walmart less and less with a thinner face. Maybe that will be helpful. But where was I? Um, oh, the skeeters tore me up. Hot as fuck in the truck. Um, And if folks don't know, the South, it can be 85 degrees in the winter, or the fall especially. But I know when I went on that famous hitchhiking trip, I left out of Fayetteville, Arkansas in middle of January and hitchhiked all through the deep South. And early on in that trip, it was like 85 degrees. I had all these winter clothes that I couldn't wear. They were just piled up on top of my backpack. It's 85 fucking degrees, like day after day after day after day. It had been cold, then it got hot, and then it, got cold again. By the time I made it to Delaware, I'd already been through, sub-zero temperatures in North Carolina, and then it was snowed like 6 inches. 1st of March, too, which happens. I mean, that happens, but that was going to be my first foray into the Northeast as a backpacker, right, a vagabond. And I ended up headed back. I think I went back to Arkansas on the Greyhound, as I recall. But yeah, I figured I'd go live, chop it up a little bit, see what everybody's doing. I got mentioned on Chalk Body Outline, if anybody knows this channel. Apparently one of his haters was going at him in the comments and mentioned me, not directly, but talking about that, he worked with this guy, and I guess that means me. And so now that guy's eating out of dumpsters and experiencing organ failure. It's like, well, actually, my health is quite good, believe it or not. And I ate out of dumpsters before I ever had found the Chalk Body Outline channel. So, back to my personality. Yeah, that's what I wanted to talk about. Me, back to me. And when I said I need to calm down, because I could feel my energy was going to take off like a rocket ship. And listen to a little bit of astrology talk about certain people born on certain dates. And I'm personally think it's silly to just dismiss and to not consider, that astrology, that's nonsense and blah blah blah. It's like, well, I don't know, man. How come I can always spot a male Leo if I'm around them long enough? Always, 100% of the time. Why? Like, why is that? Why? There has to be something to it. I'm not saying it is what it claims to be, and I take everything with the proverbial grain of salt. But to just say, that's nonsense, it's like, really? Is it nonsense? But to be reminded of my great vigor and vitality, generally speaking, and aggressiveness, assertiveness, confidence, and some of that I think gets at times. And then the what some may term histrionic, the dramatic, right? The idea of Leos as actors and all of this, and a flair for the dramatic, right? It's a good to remind myself that this is normal on some level, but then again, meditatively aware of the internal space to recognize, hey buddy, the energy's rising a little high, and then also to understand that is cranky old man, right? It is that cranky old man energy to some extent. It's like, yeah, first thing in the morning, rootin' tootin'. Yeah, I can have this great energy and vigor probably from now until about noon, right? I would be good for, around 6 hours, and then it's a fucking wrap. Shut it down, right? 50 years. And that's supposed to be normal for a 50-year-old. So what do we see? Or pace myself, right? Or I can pace myself, certainly. Truck driving is more of a pace yourself type of endeavor. And, certainly. So, how much of society, being tied up in that rat race and the go, 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 go. And how many people, in order to keep up that frenetic pace at my age, what substances are they putting in their body? What drugs are they taking? How are they coping? As we see in society, LOL, right? Society, LOL. That's really what it should be called. We live in a society, LOL, right? Most of what is said about society is actually pretty accurate if one adds LOL to it. We live in a society, LOL. It's like, yeah, absolutely. We do live in a society, LOL, right? Because to just say, well, we live in a society, it's like, okay, well, Chalk Body Outline, the recent live stream is about, and that's the channel at Chalk Body Outline. It's about in the content creator's home state, original state, home state of Minnesota. There was a 22-year-old, I guess, a grown man, black feller, who, was able to enroll in high school and play football and, bang the little white chickies, presumably, I'm assuming, which is, it's a crime, obviously. Obviously. And, and then this idea of, well, apparently a bunch of the kids beat him up, cut his dreads off and whatever. And then, to view that as justice, is one thing. And that's sort of a fuck around. Well, play stupid games, win stupid prizes. That's just, to me, that's neither here nor there. That's just sort of, if one places themselves in the mind of the criminal, right, is to say, well, this is within the realm of what could happen. He had to have known, or just chose not to realize when he chose to do this, right? But then again, everything's a conspiracy. But then this guy in a vacuum just decided to go to high school, or I don't know. Did somebody put him up to it? Who knows what was involved? Maybe mind controlled to some extent. Don't know. But then, what does it say about the administration? And then, how is the damage control? And the parents freaking out. And I line it all up with what I've been saying, which is there's no end. There's simply no end to what the American people will tolerate. So it's like, to me, the problem is not the 22-year-old. The problem is, number one, that he was able to enroll in school, number one, under those circumstances. And of course, the administration says, well, our administration process is, as strict as the law will allow. Well, no, it's actually not. It's as lax as the law will allow. They just call it the opposite. No, we do what we're legally required to do, is how that works. Clearly. And then even that, to what extent and how competently is that performed, right? And, ultimately the superintendent and the administration of the school district, it all comes down to their bond, their liability, the legal liability of the school district, however much their insurance costs, because this is the job of the administrators of a school district. It's not to educate your children. It's to negotiate the society, LOL, and these various systems of corporations, selling, materials to the school district and the various government programs that are accessible. Okay, well, how to maximize that? What are the local politics? Who, how do these people vote? Not that that necessarily does anything, but, it has something to say. So all of these dynamics, I think you can follow this. It's not, and it becomes, and this is not to criticize Chalk Body Outline as a YouTube channel. It's, I think for a parent, and again, I only have experience being parented, but I'm assuming, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems like from the perspective of the parent, it's easy to sort of go into this space of just sort of Pollyanna, like, hey, we have these wonderful gifts of children, right? The closest representations to spiritual perfection and innocence that are, possible, right? If in fact each child enters into the realm spiritually perfected, and probably has to, otherwise, what does the sacrifice to Moloch represent? And then what does Christ's sacrifice represent? Well, wouldn't that have to be a 1-for-1? Wouldn't that have to be an equal innocence and an equal sacrifice? And isn't that the entire point of the Christ story? And then, so for an adult who's been ran through the gauntlet of society, LOL, right? It is in some ways, the resurrection of the risen Christ within is, something of a return to not being like a child, but a return to some of that childlike innocence. And, you know, speaking for myself, I experience way less of the strange thoughts or the sexual thoughts or, you know, whatever these preoccupations are with the so-called pleasures of the flesh, which are nothing of the sort, right? It's an enjoyment of death. It's a loving of death, right? So really, when Drew talks about, and that's his name, Andrew, when Drew talks about these weirdos in Minnesota, you know, and everywhere in America, to be fair, these are lovers of death, right? That's that, and you know, not to hold anybody, you know, not to hold any individual's feet to the fire necessarily of religion or dogma, but you know, that is in the book, right? The idea of you know, all they that hate God, right? And if somebody wants to look at America erroneously, but they still look at it in ways as one nation under God, right? A so-called Christian nation, indivisible, which is interesting. The indivisible part, I'm just now realizing for the first time, is probably, you know, Moloch's machine and this system of things actually, again, in seeking to usurp proposition or thesis, you know, what I am, which is indivisible, right? That's an indivisible phenomenon. So it's interesting that right there in the preamble, I believe that's the preamble to the Constitution, if I'm remembering correctly, you know, or the actually that's the Pledge of Allegiance, but maybe it's the same thing. I don't know, but yeah, the idea of one nation under God, indivisible, you know, with liberty and justice for all, right? Again, so God is invoked, one nation under God, right? Well, wait, not with God, not, you know, one with God, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Well, isn't that a hint to where is the individual in the hierarchy? Where is the individual spiritually? Is the individual one with life itself, one with, um, uh, you know, the source, one with authority, justice, you know, all of these so-called positive traits? Is the being with that, or is it under that in a different place, and life as death, right? Life, air quotes, a breakfast cereal, Mikey likes it. See, so these are the lovers of death, the dead flesh. The Son of Man is dead. That's death, right? So when I read the Bible and it says Son of Man, to me that's okay, dead flesh, right? And so Christ in the dead flesh, you know, the whole point of the story is for me, not you, the listener, because this is where the solipsism, there has to be a philosophy of solipsism, because I'll never be you in the context of this place, the delusory, the vacuous delusory adversarial realm of business transactions. So to be an adult that's, you know, again, the rod and the staff and the shepherd and the steward of these, you know, representations of spiritual perfection and innocence, right? As they more and more time, right, the delusion and illusion of time, this is the process of death. This is the slow process of death, whereby each individual is taught and indoctrinated and has their own opportunity to enjoy, air quotes, the so-called pleasures of the dead flesh. That's what this place is. That's what's happening. So society, LOL. So the Pollyanna aspects are, well, you know, lefties and liberals and wackos just sort of rushed in and you know, tipped the balance, and now, you know, Minnesota's gone off the rails. Well, except for the part where normies normalize everything. See, what about the people who were living there, right? The normies, and then, oh, look, there's a bunch of leftist progressive wackos, and they do whatever's possible first, right? And then what do the normies do? They normalize it. They say, oh, well, yeah, you know, it's totally normal. And so then the leftist progressive movement looks around and says, okay, well, now a new thing is possible. And it does the new thing. And the normies rush in and go, hey, this is totally normal. And they just normalize it, right? And bit by bit, you get to whatever level of society, LOL, Minnesota currently is. So the problem is not the 22-year-old. The problem is not the administration of the school district. The problem is that the normies always normalize based on loving of death. And because that's the key to making it through this process of death from the perspective of society, LOL, is to normalize whatever happens. And then you have, a person like Drew World Order, I'm certain is a strong father who he's not taking no bullshit, right? And good on him. And then he has to go somewhere else. He has to go move somewhere else. And I'm not passing judgment on that, right, wrong, or indifferent. So now he leaves, and you have one less strong masculine presence, right? And then, so at some point, all that's left are the lovers of death, right? And of course, this is what happens. So then when it really goes off the rails because of society, LOL, is perpetrating a falsehood. See, the falsehood that is being perpetrated is, well, the school district's above board, the parents care about the children. Of course, it's just accepted. Well, of course the community and the parents care about the children. No, they don't. If they cared about the children, the next day after this story broke, no children would be seen in the school. It'd be a ghost town. Tumbleweed would and that Western theme would play. Wah, wah, wah. Because nobody would be able to send their children there the next day, because that's a violation. See? And remember, the parents don't need the school district. The school district needs the parents. The corporation, I don't need the corporation. The corporation needs me. See? But in inverted world, the psychology is set to operate, well, oh my God, we have to send our kids to school. No, you don't. You don't have to send your kids to that school. No, you don't. No, not you, the listener. No, they don't have to send their children there. So the fact that the 22-year-old got beat up, that's neither here nor there, right? Because what if there's another one? What if he ain't the only one? See, we're just and this is how humans think. We have one problem, and now it's been dealt with on a one-to-one. This never works that way, right? The problem lies inside of the lovers of death. The problem is not the administration of the school district. The problem of the administration of the school district is that you have a local populace who normalizes a bunch of weirdos running a school district. Because believe me, I remember the principal, and I didn't know the superintendents when I went to school in Arkansas, but knowing the various people like the principal, the assistant principal, the band director, whoever, these were actual men who, they weren't going for it. They weren't this smarmy, I liken it to Philip Seymour Hoffman's character from Boogie Nights. It's very difficult to explain what that is, but just if you've seen that movie, it's almost like just there's something oozing off of these people, right? And the people that administered the school district and my junior high school and all of this, yeah, they had problems and they were backwards and ignorant in a lot of ways, but they didn't have this just slime oozing off of them either, right? So the problem is not the oozing slime is not the problem. The problem is that the normies rush in and normalize the oozing of slime, right? The problem wasn't the pandemic. The problem wasn't never the mask. The problem was never the jabs. It's that 60+% of the population rushes in and just normalizes because they are so wicked and fallen individually within themselves that they can't sit comfortably for half a second unless whatever is going on around them has to be normalized. No matter what it is, it has to be normalized. And so Drew was speaking to this idea of, the lefties pretending not to understand. Well, why would a 22-year-old black man want to go to high school. And Drew's like, well, to anybody with testosterone, and he didn't say it this way, but to a man with testosterone, well, it's obvious. But then also immediately I would get accused of, well, you must want to do that. It's like, no, I remember what I was like when I was 22. Yeah, I was dating 22-year-olds, but they looked different than the high school girls, but not that much different, right? Yeah, their mentalities were more mature, but not that much more mature. Why am I 50 and could date a 22-year-old and don't even want to have a conversation with most 22-year-olds? Some of them, yeah, sure. You see what I'm saying? Like now, but again, it's to be treated like I'm guilty for observing and reporting on what's happening. See? And so you have a lot of males who could be men if they just said, well, no, we're not doing that. And like Drew, we're not doing that, meaning we got to move to fucking Florida, right? Which it's versions of it are happening in Florida, but, at some point it's like, yeah, it's happening everywhere. So, I understand the leaving of the off the rails areas, right? That makes a lot of sense. But the problem is that never will the populace society, LOL, will never just draw a line in the sand and say, well, we're not participating. See? And then when everybody goes, well, okay, well, what about this? What about that? What about it? What about a 22-year-old BBC, violating your daughter's anus? I mean, I don't know what to tell you. What about that? Right. And I don't like to be I don't like to be graphic like that, but what do you think's going on in Los Angeles? Like, I know a guy who's like 6'4", fits the BBC profile, and when he's not a drug addict, right? When he's not a scrawny, hollowed out drug addict, he reforms himself and he gains a little weight and he walks around Echo Park with 2 white chicks, right? I don't know what they're doing. I can assume what they're doing, right? That's what he does. See, so it's none of my business. But so people who think they live in conservative areas, because this is probably a smaller school district. It's probably, it's not Minneapolis proper. I'm assuming. What was it called? I forget the name of the town. Something White Bear or something, White Bear Lake. I don't remember. Something sounded rednecky to me, right? So what's the difference if the locals think that, well, we're not crazy like LA, we're not crazy like Minneapolis? Well, what's the fucking difference if the administrators of the school are just like the people in Los Angeles, except they're not attractive enough, right? They're not attractive enough to walk around Los Angeles and have those experiences, right? And Los Angeles ain't letting them have access to the children. Weird shit happens in LA too. It happens everywhere, but there's a reason why these creepy weirdos, slime or oozing slime, why they go to places that are a little more conservative, and people are just more Pollyanna about it. Oh, well, we're raising our children with Christian principles. We're hiring good people to watch over them so that the parents can go do what? Work a job all day, serving corporations to make rich people richer every new moment into perpetuity, because that's what the economy does, the function of the economy. So the parent is off serving in Moloch's army, Moloch's machine, to make sure that the servants of Satan, so whoever's closest to Satan in evil doing, right? What they get in return for serving so well is they get rewarded with wealth that grows and grows. So their own identity from an early age is tied into wealth and the growing of wealth, the expansion of wealth. And so if their wealth doesn't increase in every new moment, they go into an existential crisis. I'm telling you, they don't know who they are. So in order for their wealth to increase each new moment, the parents of these children have to go serve Moloch's machine and work in corporations and make rich people richer. And then when called to task, the parents will say, well, we have to send our kids to the school district. And I'm like, no, you don't. Well, okay, but we have to go to our jobs. No, you don't. You don't have to do anything but live and die. And this is a slow process of death anyway. So what do you mean? Because the spirit of what I am isn't bandied about. The spirit of what I am is not made to do things. It's here, right? In a waking dream, surrealistic, unreality, deja vu all over again, a dream, right? In some way, it's in a dead flesh, animated death, death warmed over. It can't even be individuated in the first place. So these are actual impossibilities. It's a subversion of a creative force. So this place is never actually real or happening because it can't be real or happening based on what I am. And again, philosophy of solipsism, maybe I'm the only one. I don't know, because what I am is only ever one. So from a perspective, right, that's logic, sir. That's rational and logical. I just explained a process of how, yeah, maybe Benton is the only one. Who knows? And in some way, it doesn't matter, because even if every other being that leaves a mother's womb, another word for matrix, into society, LOL, right? Which in some ways, the justification for society, LOL, is that it's seemingly happening when I leave my mother's womb into this place. It's like, well, it all seems to be happening, and it's therefore justified on some level, right? That's nonsense. That's nonsensical, right? That's consensus. That's to make something appear proper and righteous based on consensus. Well, so now you're telling me it's not possible to get the majority of humans to do things that are not proper and to get things that are wicked and false. What, isn't that the entire point of the story of Sodom and Gomorrah in the Bible? Is that absolutely this is what people will do? What are you talking about? And until the being in their own head, in their own mind, body, and spirit, until the being is able to think their way through all of this and resolve and reconcile all of this, I would say that they don't meet the minimum standards to be entrusted with a child to raise. Yeah, I said it. Now, I'm not saying, oh, you should have to have a license, and because obviously the government and the state of, what they would, and in fact, the government and the state of is allowing people to have children. They certainly can put a stop to it on some level, in some ways. It is happening. But my point is, spiritually, I would say that, in fact, justice would be, well, okay, there's no possibility of some of these people being able to raise a child, right? Or be trusted with a child. Meanwhile, whoever is the administrator of your local school district is somebody that should never be trusted alone in a room with a child. Just like all the ICU doctors during the pandemic nationwide are mass murderers, and they know they're mass murderers, and they walk amongst us just like that, right? Same thing with the administrator of the school district. Every single one of these people should never be trusted with a child alone. Never. That's the type of person that wouldn't be trusted, right? And so to say, well, oh, it's an accident, or oh, look at what the government's doing. The government is the people, whether parents want to face that or not. The parents are participating in the government simply by sending the child to the school. Now, I don't have children, and they say, oh, it's easy for you to say, Benton. My kid ain't going to that school the next day after that happens. Are you crazy? Now, why do you think stuff like that didn't happen when I grew up? Because nobody would have sent their kid. There would have been no kids in school the next day, effectively. I mean, like, what are you talking about? But I went to one of them schools where we couldn't have school first day of deer season, right? Because it's like, well, nobody's coming. So, and that shows you that when the people have some power, it's like, no, we're certain days we ain't coming down there. We're not going to let the school district tell us, right? But then over time, the normies normalize that, oh, well, the school district tells the parents what to do. Because when it first starts, the parents tell the school district what to do. And then it flips, and now the school district tells the parents what to do. And the parent says, well, I got to go serve this corporation. And now they don't understand the part where the reason why they have to serve the corporation is to make rich people richer. They don't understand that part. See? And that's their fault. They're guilty for that. And if there's going to be a judgment, like the Bible says, they will be called to answer for their lack of understanding. They can't be off the hook, because just like in a court of law, you can't go, well, I didn't know. I didn't know. Well, you should have known. See? Oh, I didn't know. You should have known. Right? And not you, the listener, my apologies. They should have known. See? They should have known. And if the judge, and I'm not asserting any of this, I'm talking about Christians. If the judge and this powerful, vengeful God, right, which is nonsense, but if that's who makes the decision in the final analysis, is there going to be any excuse accepted whatsoever for anybody who offends the little ones? Well, what greater offense to the little ones is there than we got 22-year-old BBC out here, all up in the booty holes of the girls that go to the school. I mean, let's just call it what it is, man. Let's call it what it is. I mean, I don't know what to tell you. Until people can face the reality of the situation, and I'll be in more trouble for talking about it in that language than I'll be seen as just as bad, as in some ways worse than what the guy did or what the administrator allowed. These people will hear me talk that way and will be more offended by the way I described something that the administration facilitated and fostered and permitted, and in some ways that's what they want. And this is the sick part, is the administration wants this, right? They want it to happen, right? But because normies normalize, and because humans don't want to face the reality of what the dead flesh represents, the Son of Man and the dead flesh, and the entire point of Christ is to like traveling the underworld after crucifixion, right? The symbol of the victory over death or the dead flesh, right? And then the resurrection to show, hey, man, the being started in a fallen state within the dead flesh and then rose up to a level within themselves, a victory over the dead flesh, right? The resurrection of the risen Christ within. See, that's the entire point of the story. To do what? To return as much as possible as nearly as possible to the perfected state that the being presumably started with. See, life, breakfast cereal. Mikey likes it. Well, Mikey would like it if the adults would pull their fucking heads out of their asses and figure it the fuck out. Well, Benton's figured it out, and he's an outcast. Society, LOL, we can't accept Benton because he's weird, he's comical, he's strange, right? Yeah, but I'm not oozing slime in service of the wicked one, right? So I'm of no use to this system of things. In fact, this system of things exists in opposition to what I am. See, Benton is treated like he's guilty. He's because he's gone inwardly and facilitated these processes. He's the nigger, and I don't mean black person. Nigger coolie, right? About to go, do a job that people who don't even speak English and migrants do, because corporations will have access to labor at the price that they choose, and that labor will be performed under the conditions that the corporation prescribes, because that's your master. Your master is Moloch's machine via corporations and government. See, so the problem is not whatever the administrators are doing; it's that the people are so fallen within their own dead, wicked, death warmed over, animated death flesh, that they can't tell the fucking difference between me and these oozing slime administrators. They can't tell the difference. See, and I'm never gonna. Number one, I don't care about being an administrator of a school district. Number two, now meanwhile, yeah, certainly intellectually I could figure it the fuck out. But am I really going to be interested in playing the politics? Am I going to be interested in, okay, well, there's a weirdo over there who has power in the local community, and I got to go schmooze him? See, oozing slime can just ooze its way wherever it needs to ooze its way. See, and it can just ooze. You can't have a strong, powerful, dominant, fierce, aggressive presence who can also ooze like slime. It's one or the other, buddy. You can't have both, right? Not on my watch. See, you can't have a school district. You can't have a strong male, even a woman. Who cares? It doesn't have to be Benton, right? I'm just using this example because my experience is as Benton, right? It could be anybody, a no nonsense strong female. Well, you can't have that as your school administrator. Not if she will actually stand up for proper principles. Well, that's not going to be allowed. Because why? Because Satan owns the school district. The school district has been sold out to Satan long ago. That's Satan's school district. So the problem is not anything other than the parents sending their children to Satan's school district, administered by a servant of Satan and servants of Satan. And yes, it's really that serious. And people say, oh, there's no Satan, there's no this, there's no that. Oh, okay, well, you're telling me there's no evil in the world. And I've had these conversations with people in my own live chat who want to gaslight and they want to raise all bets. And eventually I just put it to them. I say, so basically what you're, and I don't say what you're saying, but I say, listen, in order for your argument to have any merit, you must now, the only thing they can do strategically, and this is where people are not strategic thinkers. I said, basically, the person who's coming back at me every time, and they're always raising the bet and putting it back on me. I say, don't you realize that now the only way for you to win, if I don't give up, as long as I keep pressing them as hard as they're pressing me, at a certain point, they're going to have to make a clear case for why evil doesn't exist in the first place. And then they go, oh, well, no, I agree that evil exists. I'm like, okay, well, you have no argument. If we're willing to accept that evil exists, we must entertain the idea that it's possible that the administrator of the school district is a direct servant of Satan. Now, we can debate, what do you mean by Satan? That's fine. It could just be a personification and an embodiment of pure fucking evil. Just call it pure fucking evil. Yeah. Whoever administers your local school district, they all directly serve evil personified. Period. Your local ICU doctor, if they were there during COVID, that's a servant of evil. Period. There's no two ways about it. That's what it is. There's no exceptions. Because there's no way for an ICU doctor to have done that job during that time and not understood that they were directly killing these people. Because if they lacked the ability to understand the medical process enough, they're not competent to do the job in the first place. So they have to know what they were doing. There's no possibility that they didn't know what they were doing. Because if they truly didn't know, then they're not qualified to be a doctor in the first place. You see what I'm saying? And so when you remove from society, because remember, Benton as nigger, when you remove from society this guy who, yeah, he's comical, yeah, he's eating out of dumpsters, look at him, he almost died, look at his foolishness. But then look at all of these positive traits and all of these things he's able to verbalize, and the fact that he's not going for it. It's probably a big part of why children are not, being a parent is never going to be part of my path, thankfully. But surprise, surprise, in Moloch's wicked system of things, we've taken a person and we've completely removed him from the equation entirely. Hey, buddy, go drive a truck and you'll have plenty of money. Because on some level, I'll admit it, on some level, all I really care about is, can I go to Walmart and buy what I need? Can I have some stuff shipped to an Amazon locker or a Whole Foods somewhere? And can I go to Pretty Please with Sugar on Top, park at the truck stop every night? Because I'll admit it, I know what I am in the context of this performance. And that's the dead flesh side of things. On some level, that's all I give a fuck about. And I know this, right? And I know that that's the dead flesh. That ain't what I am. That's the dead flesh. See? And that's part of the fucking process. And at some point, Benton will rise to levels within himself where that won't even matter anymore. What then? See, I'm still clinging to this and it maybe at a certain point I get up to 155 or 160 pounds and I'm like, fuck it. I mean, I've recovered enough. And, at what point is it just like, okay, I can't really continue to justify living this way. Right. I seem to be gaining weight as far as I can tell. And that's probably what I should do, is Now that my appetite is increased, I should probably keep eating more food in the short term, right? As it's looking like people are going to have less access to food. I have more access to food. See how it works? It's like, okay, it's kind of like the system knows, okay, we'll just give him what will shut him the fuck up in the short term. Just let him have that. $1,800 a week. Here you go, buddy. While people are having trouble paying their bills and it's the NIG economy or the gig economy. How come I got all this money just out of nowhere? Right? See what I mean? Like, what even is this? And it's not that much money unless the being is a nigger coolie from the perspective of the system and doesn't mind living in a fucking truck. And in some way, it's like luxury in a way, right? In a way, compared to how I used to live or die, rather. I mean, again, slow process of death. But until the individuals who are in charge of these children, until they can reconcile all of this, what hope is there? See, and Moloch's machine operates perfectly. And what is one of the main goals of Moloch's machine? It's to defile the children, because the more symbolic representation the being is of what I am, one with the most super intelligent power, force, and source of love and creation at the highest levels, supreme authority, right? Thesis. The stronger that symbolic representation is, the more Moloch's machine is interested and says, oh, wait a minute. That's who we set our sights on. So this system, society, LOL, as it operates, it has its sights set on the youth, period. So then, you know, my criticisms of somebody like Drew is simply based on, it's not his spirit or his intention. It's that I don't think these, and again, it's not even Drew. I don't think these people are willing to accept how serious all of this is. And it's too much of a, just give us any reason to go back to Pollyanna and just, okay, well, you know, that was kind of a one-off, you know, that this happened. And then, oh, well, he got beat up, and oh, well, maybe the administration. I mean, is anybody even going to have to resign in disgrace? 30 years ago, it would already be in the news stories that, well, and such resigned. Are they even going to have to resign? Now, but what's it about now? Who gets paid? See, who gets paid? Right now. It's all about who gets paid. What insurance company is going to cut checks to whom? And so, and I'll tie this into sports. And I know the audience doesn't like sports, but Penn State fired its head football coach during the season, and they said, "Oh my God, he's got this like $70 million buyout. Now they got to just give him $70 million." Well, that's nothing. When the university is still paying because of Sandusky. Anybody remember Jerry Sandusky? Joe Paterno? They're still paying money, right? It's over $300 million for the Jerry Sandusky, right? And it always comes down to money. Always. So when I go in the comments and people are like, well, how the fuck are they going to give him? Because he, you know, it was rumored he was going to be fired. And then people are like, oh, well, he's got a $55 million buyout. And I'm like, that's nothing. So they paid over $300 million for Sandusky. They don't give a fuck about $50 million. And that Sandusky was, you know, long enough ago now. That was, you know, that's $500 million in today's money, right? 450, 500. It's 10 times more. Why would they give a fuck about 55 million? So really, this whole thing in Minnesota, it's not about the children. It's about the money. Who's going to get paid? Who's going to get paid off? Right. What we saw during the banker bailouts was, well, no, we got to keep these bank executives around to manage the crisis. So, well, of course, they got to be paid bonuses or they're going to quit their job. It's probably going to be a version of that with these administrators. Well, you know, these are the people who have the best knowledge, right? The system will say, well, these are the people who are the most qualified to manage this process because they have the most knowledge of the ins and outs of this particular school district, and they can, you know, ultimately the local people are paying for it. They're on the hook to pay for all of this in some way, whether directly or indirectly. So it's like, well, we have now it's going to be framed as, well, the school district has a duty to the locals. So in order to do right by the locals, you know, they're going to say, well, we can't fire the administration necessarily. And so if the administration isn't, if the people don't demand the resignations, because if the people don't send their children, and then a week later they're like, hey, why haven't these people resigned yet? Well, why would they? And the school district's just going to say, well, you know, the insurance company wants this and wants that, right? And how many times have I been, you know, getting my car worked on or whatever, and it's like, yeah, the mechanic, you know, probably doesn't give a fuck if I'm in there while he's working on the car. Oh, but no, the insurance. It's always, everything's blamed on insurance. Oh, well, no, the insurance company, blah, blah, blah. It's like, okay, well, we're slaves to whatever insurance companies tell us what to do, apparently. Right? Okay, well, now I've learned something. I'm told, Benton's told, not only are you free, you're more free than anybody's been in all of human history, but then insurance companies tell you what to do. Okay, well, I guess I'm as free as an insurance company says I'm able to be free. Well, okay, good to know. Right? Society, LOL. Right? Same thing's going to happen here. Oh, but they beat him up and cut his dreads off, so everything's fine. Well, I don't know. You tell that to some little white girl's booty hole. You know, tell that to some little white girl's booty hole, and whatever drugs she's going to be hooked on. You know, so when you see some 35-year-old looks 55 on a street corner somewhere, and people are like, wow, where did all these homeless people come from? Well, I don't know. A school district let a 22-year-old BBC run up in her booty hole when she was 14. And the locals didn't do a fucking thing about it because of insurance. So I don't know. You tell me why is she out there. You tell me why is she out there. And until individuals can reconcile and rationally think their way through all of that, they are going to be judged. They're judging themselves based on how they're performing. See, there's no man in the sky that needs to wait till they present themselves at the pearly gates and then he's got to put his spectacles on and go through the fucking scrolls. No, they're proving that they're beyond redemption by their behavior, see? By their behavior, right? Yeah, that's what they're doing. And then people can't see that the 35-year-old woman on the street, she is that girl in that school district. It's the same person. It's the same person, just on a timeline. Same person. See? Metaphorically. Not literally, metaphorically. How come I can do that math? Well, what I am never doesn't make that math. What I am doesn't ever not make that math, do that math. See? Now, how am I supposed to get through the day with this knowledge? See that, and that's what it is. Okay, great. Well, individuals have emotions, and how are they going to feel? They're supposed to feel like shit. When faced with the knowledge of, wow, this is really the society, LOL, that people create, that's not supposed to feel good, right? Why? Again, it's not a justification for Benton's behavior, but it starts to make sense why Benton took it to the streets for 10 fucking years, right? To figure all this the fuck out on some level, to deal with it, to reckon with it, right? To remove myself from it enough to be able to see, well, what is this? What's going on here? But not to loop into problem solving, because people say, well, what's your solution? What do you mean? I've done it. My solution is each individual's got to do better. I've done that. What do you mean, well, my solution? You're looking at it. It's talking to you right now. My solution? Huh? What? I'm just, what are you talking about? But again, that's the lefty playbook. That's Saul Alinsky's rules for radicals. The moment the opposition, right, recognizes and verbalizes a problem, make them proffer the solution. See? What are you talking about? I see tactics. I know tactics when I see them. Like, what? What do you mean, my solution? I've done it. It's called, y'all need to do better, and not you, the listener. My solution is the members, the individuals that comprise society must do better. That's my solution. And I've proven it by doing it first. I've done that, and I am going to continue to do that because that's the spirit of what I am. That is the victory over the dead flesh. That is the resurrection of the risen Christ within me, is to alchemize and facilitate these processes where I have power, which is ultimately only ever within inside of me. I don't have any power out here. Now, when the manifested truth and the living Christ and all of that You know, the shing, the word of God goes out like a sharp sword. That's a very different thing. But I'm just talking broadly speaking. Yeah. Oh, so of course you see the psychology is absolutely trained up and mind controlled to immediately loop into external level problem solving, collective herd mentality problem solving. Well, okay, how does the being deal with that fact that normies normalize? The normies will just normalize a 22-year-old BBC in your 14-year-old daughter's booty hole in the school, right? And that's her classmate. The normie just normalizes it. Now you see them scratching their head, and whoever's bold enough to actually be interviewed on TV is like, you know, actually going to say that it's wrong, and then what kind of shit are they going to catch, you know? And then this whole thing, well, they'll get accused of racism and this and that. Well, that's not the point. The point is, for the individual to do better, it's the moment they recognize, well, wait a minute, if this is actually possible, that this could happen, that is the waking dream surrealistic unreality. That's that moment sort of beyond the veil, piercing the veil, where the thing kind of shows itself for what it really is, meaning it's not actually real. And so now the individual that sees it's not real, what does that lead to? In order to reckon with that, the individual must choose to go within themselves and apprehend and access states of disorientation, despair, right? Worthlessness. See? Because how they feel about themselves, their internal view of themselves, and it is all based on this place via what? The national religion, which is consumerism, which is marketing and advertising. See? So they can't go into their internal space and reckon with it. Therefore, there is no solution. So now we see the description. Now we've described the perfect trap. And so the resurrection of the risen Christ within me, in part, is Benton's victory over the perfect trap, because what I am can never know defeat. Therefore, there can never be a perfect trap. Do you see what I'm saying? But it operates as a perfect trap, because the perfect trap says, well, as long as it works 99.9999999% of the time, that's good enough for us. Because Benton will be gone at some point. And what then? You know, after Benton's gone, right? Maybe eventually none of those little lights will shine, right? Nancy Pelosi's MS-13 spark of divinity. See? So ultimately, the only thing Benton can do is fix himself, right? And do all of these things. And it's just like, oh, well, I'm still here. And maybe the reason I'm still here is so that the antithesis can't pause the game and say, well, look, there's not, you know, a month's gone by and not even one of these little lights is shown. So I say scoreboard, Your Honor. Let's call it. You know, okay, well, I guess it's turned out that antithesis has completely usurped thesis. And maybe that's when they talk about a golden age and then, you know, whatever is followed by the decay of society and it's a cycle. Maybe this is the cycle. It's thesis and a golden age, and then eventually antithesis always fucking usurps thesis. I don't fucking know. Don't really care, right? Benton's done what is possible for Benton to do in the context of all of this. Yippee skippy yay for Benton. I'm an all-pro record setter with spiritual development, and my grandfather, you know, was a record-setting all-pro football player. So I rose to the level of my ancestor. And in fact, outdid him in a way. There you go. But not in football, but in something that I would argue is competitive. I mean, that it seems competitive to me. I know what I'm competing with, right? An entire realm that makes an enemy of what I am. That sounds like a pretty high-level competition to me. But if it's defined in the context of, well, okay, well, Benton, how's that working out for you? And then what they mean is, how's that working out for you individually? I don't know. I got a pocket full of money. I got all the food I would want to eat. I got a relatively safe place to lay my head, right? You know, I don't know that this is what I would just choose in a vacuum, but actually working out pretty fucking good for me. If we're going to gaslight, yeah, I'm contented for now, right? Meanwhile, what I am will never know discontent in the first place. See? So I'll defeat the gaslighting and the appeals to the fickle feelings of the peanut gallery. I'll go ahead and defeat that too. Why not? With what? Logic, symbols, you know, rhetoric, performance, rise above. You know, there's all these mechanisms that are available to the individual, but the individual cannot discover, uncover, and develop them, because then they won't ever be accepted in society. And I'm here to tell you there's no such thing as society LOL. Society LOL is not capable of accepting you. It's only capable of pretending to accept you based on social contract, and then if you don't do what it wants, it removes what it tells you approval is, and then when you get back in line because that's disorienting, then it says, okay, now we'll pretend to tolerate you again. And what we've seen during the pandemic, and this is a lot of what Millennial Steam talks about on his channel, what we've seen is that motherfuckers really can't stand each other. It's the social contract and it's the psychology of things, right? To where just everybody's mind controlled and psychologically controlled on some level to just, okay, well, they're doing the things that we all agree means we must accept them. So they're accepted, right? What I am can never be accepted here because this place exists to make an enemy of what I am. Therefore, I can perform in very high level, perfect ways. And if it's not in service of this wicked system of things in this world of death and game of lies, it's still, my accomplishments still can't be acknowledged. And in fact, mockery, ridicule, and shame. And that is the Christ story. That's Christ with the crown of thorns walking through the streets, or being led through the streets, dragging his cross while they jeer and mock and ridicule. That's my life, metaphorically. And I say, demons, do your worst. Mock me as hard as you can. Ridicule me as hard as you can. It reminds me of what I am. Because even in spite of myself, I still forget what I am at times. For moments, I forget. Well, here's the Holy Ghost, here's the Comforter, which is the Holy Ghost, sent to teach me all things. A lot of this I've been taught recently. Benton has been taught these things. And to bring unto my remembrance. Hey, buddy, you've forgotten yourself for the last 10 Mississippis. How about you get right, buddy? And until individuals can do that, there's no hope whatsoever. There's no hope whatsoever. All roads lead to service of Satan until individuals undergo their own discrete, creative, artistic version of what I'm describing, right? And MAGA and conservatives are cut off from ever even doing that because they won't access yin, feminine, and art because, oh, well, that's they might actually be homosexual if they do those things. Well, the flesh is dead, buddy. The flesh is dead. And guess what? We have confess, repent, seek forgiveness, and forgiven like it never happened. You think that doesn't apply to the homosexual acts? You're crazy. Of course it does. Oh, it doesn't say, well, that exists except for these couple of things. It exists for everything except blasphemy in the Holy Spirit. See? And so meanwhile, you got Charlie Kirk, an obviously gay man, or a woman, whichever. I'm not into those conspiracies anymore. And then you got Tom Cotton, who they keep talking about is going to run for president, congressman from Arkansas, the most obviously gay man I've ever laid eyes on. That's the most obvious person I've ever seen. Took one look at Tom Cotton, said, oh, that's a gay dude. 100% it's a gay dude, right? But see, MAGA can't tell because MAGA's status quo and their social contract is, well, as long as he pretends to like girls, we just take him at his word. See? That's also how Mayor Pete was living. You think they couldn't tell Mayor Pete was fucking had a little sugar in his tank when he was dating women? You think they couldn't tell, right? I just never used to say anything. And then it was like, at a certain point, I realized, oh, well, people, they can kind of tell anyway. So it's like, what's the fucking difference? It's actually better to just sort of acknowledge it. And now I don't think that way anymore. I don't have those thoughts, right? So what's it matter? You know, pray the gay away. It's a real thing, man. Who cares? That ain't what I am. You see what I'm saying? That's not what I am. That's the dead flesh, the pleasures of the dead flesh. And if you think I'm the only one, you're crazy. If you think, oh, well, Benton, he's the weirdo. Yeah, I'm a weirdo, but not because of that. If every single Republican who's had gay sex wasn't allowed into the building tomorrow, you'd see that, wow, where'd everybody? Oh, well, we got a guard out there who's got a list of people who've committed homosexual acts, and we've been given instructions not to allow them in the building. You'd be like, damn, there's hardly anybody here. Oh, but Biden's poopy diaper and Nancy Pelosi, they're fallen and wicked, and we got something to point and laugh at, right? So that means that all of these Republicans have to be good, moral, just upstanding people. Well, it's a bunch of faggots. They're a bunch of faggots, right? So go follow some faggots, right? Go be bossed around by a bunch of faggots, right? Now, Benton's a lot of things. I'm not bossed around by a bunch of faggots. Because what I am can't tolerate being bossed around by women, faggots, oozing slime. What I am can't deal with that, right? So it just has to go somewhere else. It's like, well, okay, y'all can have it. I'm going somewhere else. See you later, right? But this is what I mean. There is no possibility of the facilitating the resurrection of the risen Christ within without the individual understanding that, wow, if what I am really is one with the most super intelligent power, source, and force of love and creation, expanding creation, creativity itself, that's art, buddy. That's art. And you really think that the individual is going to go inside of themselves and reckon with what's there without creative expression and artistically creating their own spiritual practices like I've done? I'll never get credit for 15 plus years of creatively on the fly inventing my own spiritual practices that work for me and continue to. I'll never get credit for that, but I know what it is. I know that it happened. What else matters? The opinions of a bunch of people who send their children to school districts to be preyed upon by oozing slime. And then we see who got hired in Arkansas to teach children. This 25-year-old who ended up murdering the parents of some girls in Devil's Den State Park. Yeah, that's who the administration wants teaching your children. Because Satan says, well, this is who I hire to administer my school district. It's not your school district, parents. It's Satan's school district. Because you sacrificed your children to Moloch. Day one. I didn't do that. You did it. Right? I'll say, oh, well, now he's being judgmental. I don't know, Christians. Your book says there's going to be a judgment. You're lucky I ain't the judge. Right? That's all I can say. That's the spirit of what I am, but not vengeance. Not to say, oh, well, what I am is a vengeful God. Well, what I am ain't a God in the first place, but it's damn sure not vengeance, right? But it's the spirit of it. It's to say, man. Now, if that spirit was present in the school district, if you had one or two Bentons strutting around, looking at them, giving them the side eye, like my dad. When we're eating as a family, this is my dad's face, just looking at people. I'm not bullshitting, right? That's gone. That shit is gone from society. See, it's a wrap on that. That ain't allowed no more because the woman's in charge, and she ain't got them facial expressions. She's got intuition and she suspects things, right? See. It's the man's job. And yeah, Benton's a weirdo. He's got strange proclivities. He said a bunch of weird shit. We really don't want to be around him half the time. But when the rubber meets the road, that's a man who will do what's right, come what may. Because that's the only way I can be a man. And they made me into that. I didn't have no choice. See? Because that's what society needed in order to build this motherfucker up. That's what Moloch's machine needed at the time I came along in a time warp and said, well, we still need actual strong men, right? So me and everybody else I grew up with, we became what we were made to be. It's that simple. It's not, oh, well, we're just happen to be Gen Z doesn't want to work and look at all these pussies. We would have been not wanting to work and pussies too. If they let us, they didn't let us. So normies have rushed in and normalized the removing of the strong presence that demands, well, my sons are going to be strong. I don't know what y'all are doing. Right? That's gone. It's gone. It ain't coming back until Moloch's machine needs it. And then it'll be right back. Oh, look, dominant men are back. Oh, wow, amazing. Right on time to build up whatever Moloch's machine needs built up. Isn't that a fucking coincidence? Yeah, I guess it is. Yeah. So tell me again how everybody's going to come together and externally problem solve their way through that. It's never going to happen. Individuals must do better. And so, of course, conservatives and MAGA just assume that they occupy the moral high ground because there's an out group to point at and laugh at and mock and ridicule. So they must be sanctified and consecrated by and absolved in it by extent in comparison. It's like, no, buddy, absolutely not. It's not because these people are wicked and fallen and you're not. It doesn't work that way. Because both things can be true. Both groups are wicked and fallen. Both groups. Both groups, wicked and fallen. And conservatives completely cut off from all artistic expression, right? And I hate to criticize Drew, but we see it with Drew. The more he goes into this conservative daddy mode, the less creative and artistic he is. It's just how that works, buddy. I mean, it's not an insult. It's not a pejorative. It's a thing that happens, right? Like, yeah, my dad, if I hadn't came along, would, probably just kept playing a bass guitar and being in a band and, having his long hair and all of that. See? He would have been into the creative expression side of things, right? But now here comes responsibility, and we got to turn these children into addressable corporate units so that rich people can get made richer every new moment into perpetuity, because that's job one in this world of death and game of life. That's what matters. That's what matters. Not your children's welfare, not the health and the welfare of what is supposedly the greatest asset, right? As long as it's always framed in the context of serving Moloch's machine and economy and profit, and well, you got to earn a living. Oh, we got to feed the children. Not that hard to feed children, folks. Really not. They say, well, what do you know about it? You've never done it. Well, I'm just saying, it's a calories, sir. It's a minimum number of calories, and it's a certain amount of nutrients. I'm telling you, man, it's not that difficult. So this idea that we got to feed our children and house our children, no, you must do that in a very specific way based on how will the people around you accept or reject you, right? Pretty much anybody with half a brain and who's not just a completely lazy piece of shit can figure out how to make sure their children are fed every day and, have a roof over their head. This ain't that hard, man. It's really not. Let's quit pretending like it's just some great fucking, and Drew is proving it. 4 kids in 5 years, apparently. I mean, it's like, oh my God. Well, I don't know. He's figuring it out somehow. I don't know how the fuck he's doing it. I don't really care. Because why? Because he's in charge of that. Do you think he's going to fail on his mission? He chose the motherfucking mission. First, the warrior places himself beyond the possibility of defeat. See? And if he's tapped into, if he is what I am, and he's tapped into that, he can't fail. Because there is no defeat there. That force only knows victory. See? Do you see what I'm saying? But you can't We can't pretend like the spiritual condition of the populace is something other than what it is, and then also just say, okay, well, maybe the government and maybe the corporations will allow things to be okay again. Yeah, it will when it needs society built up. Meanwhile, all social problems will still be fully fomented by 1960. It's like, yeah, oh, the Ozzie and Harriet, the Leave It to Beaver, they built the country up. Everything was wonderful because a man, the milkman could afford to buy a home, and there was a woman there to raise his kids and wash his clothes. Yeah, because that's what Moloch's machine needed. Meanwhile, by 19 motherfucking 60, all social problems that are not directly related to technology, and probably earlier, but certainly by 1960, they were all there. All of them. Just go down the fucking list of social problems. They were all there by 19 motherfucking 60, 50 years before I was born. I'm sorry, 15 years before I was born. Right. So you tell me what's it all mean, right? There's no response to any of that, because the only thing that fixes that is individuals have to do better. Except individuals can't do better because of the perfect trap. Because in fact, for an individual to do better, it becomes Christ dragging his cross through the streets, metaphorically, being ridiculed, mocked, jeered, attacked. They ain't about that life. Just the disorientation of going into their eternal space and reckoning with whatever's going on in there, just that will keep them off of the path. Just that one thing. It's like, oh my God, we can't deal with this. Yeah, I know. And Moloch's machine knows you can't deal with it. And again, I don't mean you, the listener. My apologies. This is so rapid fire in the mind, But anyway, I got to go drive a truck. Be back later. I get to go drive a truck. Let's be clear. Get to, don't have to. Get to.